Today, we're reacting to an ESPN-style discussion covering several big NFL topics, from roster moves to quarterback struggles and playoff reactions. This is one of those segments that jumps between teams but still connects around the same idea: decision-making, pressure, and how teams respond when things don't go as planned. Before getting into the react, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this kind of NFL content.
The Packers have released cornerback Trevon Diggs, making him a free agent when the new league year begins on March 11th. Of course, free agency will be here before we know it. Diggs played 2 games in Green Bay after being released by the Cowboys in late December. We'll see where he ends up next. Still to come, signed, sealed.
Don't know how much to, pin on him, but the body of work, I think, on the whole was good. And I also will say this. I do love the fact that him and the GM are coming in together, even if they're not best friends, as Jeff said, because around the league, I see so many situations where a team held on to a GM and you almost feel like the GM and the head coach might have different timelines and different priorities. I love that Miami got them both not only from the same place at the same time, so they will be working in lockstep. And that's especially important because this is going to be a multi-year process given the quarterback and cap situation. And so they do not want to be putting too much pressure on the roster to win this season. And hopefully the GM and the head coach being on the same timeline will help that.
Yeah, what's the plan for the salary cap and what's the plan for quarterback? Those are the two starting points. I believe that now, to Mina's point, you're coming in with a new head coach, new GM. This feels like a tear it down, complete rebuild, start from a new beginning at all positions, candidly. And what that means for Tua, if he's going to be there or if they're going to try to move on from him and deal with the salary cap, we'll figure that out, or they'll figure that out. But I do think we can point to how Green Bay has been built. Green Bay has been built with draft picks. Green Bay has been built with defensive line investments. The amount of picks and high first-round picks that have been invested into the Green Bay defensive line, and Hafley's experience not only in Green Bay, but don't forget he was in San Francisco when they had a ton of investments into defensive line. This feels like Miami will immediately start to build from the defensive line perspective and then figure it out from there. But I think we're going to talk coordinators, salary cap. Who manages that salary cap is going to be pivotal to how quickly they can start the rebuild.
It does also make you think, if they were more supported around the quarterback position, maybe things are better for Tua and he could almost get a fresh start in that way. Jeff rejoining us here. What do you know, Jeff, about the future of Tua Tagovailoa?
What I would tell you is that when we look at the fact that they fired Mike McDaniel, some might say, well, maybe that means they want to put somebody else with Tua. That is not the case. Organizationally, I would say that they actually held McDaniel to a higher regard at this point than Tua as their franchise quarterback. Obviously, there are the salary cap implications that could make Hafley take a second look at this, but I do think that organizationally, they are prepared to move on from Tua even as they bring in this new regime. They understand what that comes with. We saw it in Denver. It can work, but it does take lockstep, as you guys said, with the head coach and the general manager. And it also means when it comes to the draft, you cannot miss. That's how Denver has gotten to this.
The early part feels very much like front office reality talk. When teams bring in a head coach and a GM together, it just makes more sense. Even as a fan, you can see how messy things get when leadership isn't aligned. This really sounds like a long-term rebuild mindset instead of trying to force wins right away.
And that's how the Dolphins are going to do it. And they feel like these are the two guys that can get them there.
Interesting. Yeah, they have the number 11 overall pick. And Jeff, that line from you, they're prepared to move on from Tua with this new regime if that ends up happening. Really interesting. Some I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about thanks to you. We've got a lot more coming your way here. Tough outing for C.J. Stroud as the Texans fell to the Pats 28-16. Here's DeMeco Ryans on what his message to his quarterback was after the game.
I talked with CJ today, and my message is the same. Right now, it's just about him just flushing this one. Right, it's going to be a lot of negative talk, a lot of attention on him. I just say you can't listen to it all. Right? You just got to get back to work in the offseason of going back to the basics, the fundamentals of playing the quarterback position, playing it really well, understanding how we need to play the game to win the game. Right, and he understands that already.
Now, remember, C.J. Stroud missed 3 games in November due to a concussion. The Texans were 3-5 at the time of his injury. He played in Houston's final 8 games, including playoffs, and although the team went 7-1 in those games, his numbers were down from early in the season. That includes throwing 5 picks in his 2 playoff games after throwing 5 in his final 11 regular season games. Mina, we'll start with you here. What went wrong for C.J. Stroud?
The way I would summarize it is he took a situation that was bad and he made it worse. Going back and watching Houston's offense, I think what struck me outside of Stroud's mistakes, which I will get to, which was how many mistakes other people made in this game. The pass protection was disastrous. They could not run the football. A lot of stacked boxes. And the pass catchers had some pretty bad drops as well. And of course, not only he didn't have Nico Collins, you lose Dalton Schultz in that game. But on top of that, C.J. Stroud missed throws, and then, of course, the turnovers happened in some situations where, an example like the pick 6, that's a bad play, it's a busted play. You got to just take the L there and not try to make something happen, which is what also happened in the prior round. And I think moving forward for Houston, that has to be the priority. He's got to learn to let plays die. Because ultimately, I think that was probably the greatest undoing for him in this postseason, not just in this round, but in the wild card round as well.
Yeah, so like the 31 quarterbacks thing, it's probably a little extreme, but we went into the playoffs sitting there saying there was 2 quarterbacks that you just couldn't lose the game for your team. Sam Darnold and then CJ. Sam Darnold did very little on Saturday night. His team won by 30-plus points. And when you watch CJ in the game, you're sitting there saying all you have to do is not make mistakes. And the way that your defense is playing, you got a chance to win. This is a touchdown, but the fullback is actually a defensive tackle. He sends the tight end in motion. They score on this play, but it's wiped away.
Yeah.
But you're C.J. Stroud. You should own the line of scrimmage and get that executed. This is on first down. This is the first interception. They're taking a double move shot. The safety bites. First down, I'm cool with you taking a shot to the end zone, but on first down, we just float this ball out to the sideline. That takes 3 points off the board. This is the keeper. The defensive end wins the rep. This is once again first down. Just throw the ball into the ground. But that gives New England 7 points. You just can't make that mistake.
Once the conversation shifts to quarterbacks, the tone changes completely. You can feel how everything depends on that position, no matter how good or bad the roster is. It also shows how unforgiving the league is. One rough stretch and suddenly a franchise is already thinking about moving on.
I'm not going to talk about the dropped interception. This is with 2 minutes to go in the half. You just had the 2-minute warning. It's first down. He's covered. You're too good of a player to try and make that throw, let alone make a bad throw. And I think that's what the puzzling thing was. We've had conversations about it. My opinion, I didn't see this version of CJ this year. Yeah. I don't think CJ was great this year, but CJ was good. And to watch what he was in the playoffs, in Pittsburgh, you're like, okay, one off. And then with New England, in the elements against that offense that is still young, with that defense dominating, that's what the puzzling thing was. And I do think that's going to, listen, this is a Super Bowl caliber defense. I do think this is still a Houston window, Mina, where you're like, hey, we got 2 years to win this thing. We have to have, I think they pick his 5th year option up, yes. Yeah. We have to have a competent plan B.
It was interesting in talking to Texans players even after they had beaten the Steelers to advance. They all said that it was CJ's aggressiveness that they kind of rallied around even when he had made mistakes. And it kind of, to your point here, some of that really bit him. Like it was almost like they were encouraging that a lot. And then it didn't end up working out the way that they wanted it to. We'll keep an eye on what they do going forward. But let's talk about the Bears. They lost a thriller late against the Rams after an interception in overtime by Caleb Williams. He was asked about it yesterday. Here's what he had to say.
Small things like that show up in those moments that, you may not have talked about, but being on the same page or talking about it, maybe week 1 or week 6, it shows up in week 18 or whatever week we're in. And so, it's something that to learn from for myself, a learning experience. It's something for us to learn from as an offense and as a team. And we'll go do that at some point.
I mean, he made some incredible throws, but in the same token, even just moments before. Dan, what went wrong, though, ultimately for the Bears?
Short yardage.
Yeah.
They lost the game because of short yardage situational football. And credit the Rams defense. They made some really impressive plays in those moments, but they were good on early downs. But the reality was this is kind of what this team has been this year. I mean, in the first 3 quarters throughout the season, when it comes to the games, they're minus 4 points. And so they kept giving themselves we can get it done in the fourth quarter. We'll make the miracle plays in the fourth quarter. And obviously, Caleb makes that one miracle play. But it is
the C.J. Stroud discussion hits hard because it shows how fast narratives change. One year you're untouchable, the next you're being questioned on fundamentals. From a normal fan perspective, it really looks like pressure and chaos around him made things worse, not just his own mistakes.
Reminder of hey, a little bit of a too little, too late type of thing. And so I think the aggression on 3rd and 4th down were the right calls out of Ben Johnson to be in that mindset. They just didn't get it done in really any of them to swing the momentum of the football game.
So, look, obviously Caleb had his ups and downs over the course of that game, culminating with a throw that was an unbelievable up, and that has to be acknowledged. But I think what surprised me the most, not just in this game, but in the previous game, was the Bears' inability to run the ball in the postseason the way they did during the regular season. 2 of their worst games of the year in success rate on running back runs happened in the wild card round and the divisional round. And while I do think the Rams' run defense deserves a ton of credit, I thought the backers were fantastic in this one in particular, as well as the DBs. If you had told me during the regular season, Dan, that the Bears would get to 1st and 5 at the goal line and not punch it in, I would not have believed you, quite frankly. And so, I think just thinking as to why they didn't get to the NFC Championship, that's something that I would point to. This team did not live up to their regular season reputation on the ground in the playoffs when it mattered the most.
Yeah, I think that's why we saw Ben get down there and go run, pass. I know a lot of people were critical of that, but if you're Ben Johnson, why would you not have? I would say this, something to pay attention to, because we were just talking about this with Seattle and Cooper Kupp and his willingness to be on the perimeter and blocking. You've seen it impact JSN and Shaheed. I do think that Chicago is in need of that wide receiver that just is that I'm going to do the dirty work in the run game, the Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Cooper Kupp.
Did they kind of think Rome Odunze was going to do more of that? Or?
I do, but Rome is a guy that kind of slips off the block on that 3rd and goal and allows Swift to jump and get hit by the defensive back. So I just think for the evolution of this offense, you need that outside perimeter player to be that nasty Jawan Jennings type of blocker, because that takes the run game to the next level all the time.
To what you guys are saying, the 1.5 yards before contact per rush Sunday versus the Rams, their 3rd lowest of the season. Certainly a departure from what we had.
Overall, this segment shows how thin the line is between success and failure in the NFL. Coaching alignment, quarterback development, and execution in key moments all matter way more than hype or talent alone. It's not about one bad play. It's about patterns that repeat when teams don't clean up the basics. That's why these debates are so interesting, because they mix real football issues with long-term consequences. If you enjoyed this reaction and want more content like this, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel.